All right, now I'm joined by political journalist John Fund to break down everything that's just happened in this extraordinary interview. John Fund, we've now had the big interview. Your reaction to what can only be called an absolute symphony of platitudes?
Well, Kamala Harris has graduated from the word salad school of rhetoric to the meaningless tripe school of rhetoric. I've never heard so many empty words recently in any interview from any presidential candidate. The whole thing reminded me of an infomercial, except that in an infomercial, they actually try to sell the product and they actually often succeed. In this case, it was an infomercial that was completely void of content.
Now, John, I want to get your reaction to some of the specific bits of this here, like this particular part, which I thought was very telling, when she's asked about Joe Biden's condition, what she knew, and if she regrets defending him.
You insisted that President Biden is extraordinarily strong. Given where we are now, do you have any regrets about what you told the American people?
No, not at all. Not at all. I have served with President Biden for almost 4 years now, and I'll tell you, it's one of the greatest honors of my career, truly. He cares so deeply.
He cares. That's all that we care about. It's all the big caring candidacy. But this leaves a very big question here. I mean, how much did she know about Joe Biden's condition for all of these months and years that he was on the decline?
We're never going to know. There is something in journalism called the rule of the follow-up, James, which is if the person you're asking the question of completely avoids the question, you follow up to try to nail them down. The thing that was missing from this, in addition to tough-hearted questions, was almost no follow-ups.
Yeah, and we didn't just also hear from Kamala Harris tonight. We also heard from Tim Walz, who was sort of in this weird position, to use that word weird, as a sort of the emotional support puppy or something like that. I was astounded, though, when we're talking about tough questions, by this answer when he was asked about what he had said about whether or not he served in combat.
You said that you carried weapons in war, but you have never deployed actually in a war zone. A campaign official said that you misspoke. Did you?
My record speaks for itself, but I think people are coming to get to know me. I speak like they do. I speak candidly. I wear my emotions on my sleeve.
That's the problem, John. He just cared too much.
Look, Tim Walz not only didn't answer any of the questions really that were asked of him, the impression that the whole interview gave was that he was her lawyer accompanying Kamala Harris to a deposition to make sure that she didn't say something wrong, or maybe perhaps a parent accompanying a student to a parent-teacher conference to try to give, as you say, emotional support. There was no reason for him to be there except one. The interview would be shorter with two people rather than with one. As it was, the interview was 28 minutes. CNN padded it, of course, to a full hour.
Yeah, no, and you know, just talking about follow-up questions there, I was amazed that there was no follow-up questions about Tim Walz and what he said about the rank at which he left the service, no questions about him leaving the service and resigning his National Guard post before they shipped out to a combat zone in either Iraq or Afghanistan. Again, I feel like they're trying to put this all to bed here with one pat answer and say, now we never have to answer this again. Is this what they're trying to do?
Well, I'll tell you what they're trying to do. They are, as Mick Mulvaney mentioned, dropping this interview just before a long Labor Day weekend where it will get almost no attention. Then we have a debate on September 10th. I think it will happen. So there'll be no interviews between now and September 10th. The September 10th then debate will happen. Let's just say it's a draw. That's the most likely outcome. And she will try, because there'll only be 6 weeks left in the campaign, she will try to skate and never do a one-on-one interview with a challenging journalist. That will be the most amazing lack of transparency and accountability and ability of the American people to evaluate the candidates since Richard Nixon ran the Watergate re-election campaign of 1972, hide the ball and hide the crimes. And let me tell you, we've had a lot more media since 1972. 1972, we had 3 networks. We had 2 national newspapers. Now we have the internet, we have podcasts, we have 5, 6 cable channels, news channels, and she will avoid all of them if she can through the entire campaign.
Well, now, the question is this going to be a winning strategy or not? Because I'm starting to look at some of the polls now, and they suggest that maybe whatever kind of excitement bounce she got and convention bounce she got is starting to wear off. Now, there is a Fox News poll which shows that Kamala Harris has had big increases of support in Arizona and Georgia and Nevada. But at the same time, though, we're also seeing other polls, such as the Nate Silver aggregation of polls, put a model in place that says that actually now Trump is more likely to win. Where do you take all of these polls at the moment? And are you surprised at all that they seem to be coming back, some of them at least, in the Trump direction?
We keep seeing polls misjudge the final result. In fact, in Britain, they finally have done an analysis of the poll in the Labour Party victory last month in Britain. What do they show? They show the polls were off by 4.5 points in predicting the Labour Party's percentage of victory. First of all, Donald Trump is probably going to do better than his polls in the final result because that's what always happens, and there's the shy Trump voter. Secondly, the state polls don't have enough people to really have anything that's meaningful beyond a margin of error. And lastly, we have to get to the first debate for people to actually have an understanding of who this Kamala Harris is, other than this pleasant visage and this politics of joy that we're seeing on the screen that people are getting. So I say, if you have to look at the polls, I mean, it's like a car accident. You know you shouldn't look, but you do anyway. If you have to look at them, go to Real Clear Politics and look at their polling averages, which smooth out all the polls, not just focus on one. And secondly, don't look at any of the polls seriously until after the debate.
John Fund, thank you so much for your time, as always.